Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but my curiosity is constantly at peak when it comes to vampires. I've been obsessed my whole life. It was something that began with watching Interview the Vampire when I was at a very, very young age. Thanks, Anne Rice! As I've gotten older, I've observed the development of the vampire character over the past century since Bram Stoker's novel debuted. I mean, even way before Bram Stoker, when there was a lack of modern science and modern medicine, many people believed that vampires were the cause of contagious, life-threatening diseases. For example, the bubonic plague. How does the vampire character become more of a humanized character, and why? I'm gonna try and break it down for you. Let me try to break it down for you, okay? Bram Stoker created the first model of a vampire character that would be redone for decades. What was this model? Take a look at Nosferatu, the silent film in 1929. No human feels sympathy for him because he's wretched, ugly, and sucks the blood out of people. He's a monster, inside and out. The vampire wasn't always ugly, though. There are a handful of films that capture horrendous-looking bloodsuckers, including a newer movie, 30 Days of Night, based off the graphic novels. We did, however, see a drastic change of appearance. We take the jump from Nosferatu version, pointy ears, the bat-like teeth in the front, bald head, very, very creepy looking. Then we moved to Bela Lugosi, who appeared like a human and could blend into society a little bit easier. He was charming, handsome, and rich, with a huge fortress to himself. I mean, who could say no to that? Oh, but his heart was cold and black. His appearance was deceptive, which is a bit more frightening than just a scary-looking monster that the Nosferatu character was. You're not anticipating the kill. It really does sneak up on you. You really want to try and find redeeming qualities in Dracula? Well, let's skip over Christopher Lee's version of Dracula. He did a wonderful job. I love Christopher Lee, no doubt, but those sequels were terrible and there was no change in characterization. It's pretty much a duplication of Bela Lugosi's version of Dracula. End of story. So what about Gary Oldman's portrayal? I think it came out like 1992. Movie's about as old as I am. I'm 22. Didn't you cry when Dracula died at the end? Spoiler alert! I know I did, and if you didn't, you're heartless, like Dracula. That is the model that Bram Stoker created since his first Dracula novel, and the Nosferatu film that followed, the illusion of love for Mina, but only a lust for power. Dracula has no heart. He's completely heartless. So let's take it back to the 80s. The good old 80s. I love the 80s. I hope you love the 80s. It was a great time for horrible, horrible movies, but the vampire movies were pretty freaking spot on, let me tell you. We had Fright Night, we had the Dracula films with Christopher Lee. Well, the first one is good, don't watch any of the other ones. And of course, the Lost Boys. So what did Fright Night and the Lost Boys capture? To put it in the best terms possible, the masquerade. To appear human, to appear as though they are a normal American family and that they are normal American people. They're also quite brutal when feeding by ripping off scalps, which is a scene I specifically remember when watching The Lost Boys. It's just freaking disgusting. Comparing Bela Lugosi's Dracula with those of the 1980s, the vampires aren't a hollow visage of their former selves, but more sinister and evil. The way the Lost Boys vampires tear the flesh off of the bone while feeding shows a much more animalistic portrayal of a vampire instead of simply drinking the blood that Bela Lugosi's Dracula would do. But even that same model of like a heartless vampire continued on with like the Blade movies to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It just continued because that is what the vampire ideal was, is that the vampire was the villain. They were the horror genre, part of that, really. But what seemed to change it for me, and this is still kind of put in horror, I don't know why. The movies aren't scary by any means, unless you're terrified of vampires. I'm not. That would be Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. Like I stated earlier, that was the first vampire movie I was ever exposed to, and it's not a scary movie. It's not. I mean, there are thrilling parts. I would say it's a thriller, but it's not a horror. To me, it's much more of a drama film, and it deals with a lot of emotions, and it really kind of dives into the lonesome solitude that is a vampire's life, the sadness to have to take a life to survive. That was when that really started to come into play. I mean, obviously her novels came out in like the 70s, but as a portrayal on screen, that was the first time that a vampire had ever been portrayed that was, well, for me, you know, had emotions. And in fact, it's now even more frequently used that vampires are far more emotional and that the senses are heightened. I mean, their senses were heightened before, like sound and seeing and things, but I mean like emotions. The emotions are heightened. So if you're very happy, you're very happy. If you're very sad, you're very sad. If you're very angry, you're very, very angry. Everything is kind of like 10 times more than when you were human. And that could be displayed, especially through Louis, who is a whiny baby, and Lestat is a very complicated person. We all know this. He's noted as the brat prince, but he also has a very emotional side too, which you can kind of see also with his mother in The Vampire Lestat, the book. Then we started getting vegetarian vampires with Twilight. I don't understand this. I will admit I did read Twilight. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. But I was a teenager. I was 15 years old, and I wanted some cheesy, stupid romance, and I got it. So I'm not gonna say Twilight is the best thing I've ever watched in the world or even read in the world, but it certainly changed the perspective of a vampire. It became more of a romantic kind of thing. Not that women didn't want to get with Lestat before, because I tell you, if you look at Stuart Townsend in those leather pants, you would definitely consider it for sure. Oh yeah, baby, ow! No, that was like the first time that they're like, oh well, you can feed on animals, it's just as good. And clearly it's not in Anne Rice's world. It's not the same quality. You know, vampires are getting political, and they're like, oh well, maybe we should drink animal blood and then be more intertwined with human society. That would be great. Definitely a step away from Anne Rice. So now vampires are kind of more in the front, really interacting with humans, especially with True Blood, because then they come out of their casket, so to speak. And I actually liked True Blood. I didn't get to watch all of the seasons. I watched like part of the first and then the entire last season, which is the completely wrong way to watch a show, but I really enjoyed it either way. So those vampires were a bit more real to me, and they kind of brought back that same essence of a vampire to feed on humans, yet they were human-like. Like, oh, they're not feeding on us anymore. Okay, it's cool. And I feel like that takes away from what a vampire is. And when you look back on more, I guess, biblical terms, so to speak, I'm not a Bible person, but I can give you a gist of what happened. So, I'm pretty positive Lilith was cursed by God, and so was Cain. But vampires were cursed to feed on God's children. While animals were created by God, they clearly meant humans. As far as Vampire the Masquerade, their world is completely different from any other vampire world that has been created, because they have their own clans that all have their own different personalities, all their own methods of killing and feeding, whether that be seduction, domination, or simply just devouring them, whichever. So that in itself is its own kind of category that kind of sits separately. They don't make themselves known to humans. In fact, they really don't make buddies with humans. Once you become a vampire, it's like, well, they're things I feed on, but I'm not going to kill them because I know that's not right. Vampires have empathy now, but not all of them. Just the ones that decide not to kill them. Like I said, it's a very complicating world, but having a world like that means you have choices. So I feel like in a real vampire society, that sounds like something that would be right. You would have vampires that would respect human life, and then vampires that wouldn't. Then we can move on to Vampire Diaries. I watch Vampire Diaries. It's like my girl show. It's my gossip show. I don't really watch it because it's vampires and werewolves and stuff. I watch it because it's my girl drama, boyfriend, girlfriend, love show. Kind of the same thing with Twilight, but I think Vampire Diaries is so much better in that they don't write characters that are like, these are the good guys and these are the bad. Everyone is bad and everyone is good. Everyone is super complicated in their motives and who they are, and I think that is like really spot on, amazing character writing. And yeah, it's a drama show full of like breakups and love and sex and just not like, you know, it's not like True Blood sex, but sex. A lot of that going on with supernatural things going on around it. So, but I feel like it's a really great show. I've met a few guys who watch it, but it's mainly, I would say, a girl show. But I feel like they even out the playing field here as far as vampires and what is considered good and bad, which is how it should be. It should be complicating. You know, you're not always going to be a good person and you're not always going to be a bad person. Hopefully we can bring back some of that terror with vampires, because I go to Halloween Horror Nights every year, and it may just be me because I don't find vampires scary because I'm so drawn to them. If there's a vampire house, I walk in like, this is my home and you are my people and I love you, and it's not scary to me at all. I'm just like, oh my god, I love you, oh my god, I love you, oh my god, you look amazing, I love you. I'm kind of weird like that. So nothing in those houses really scare me. So, but that should change. They should have like a 30 Days of Night like house. They should make a new 30 Days of Night that's not a really horrible sequel, and then so, like, promote it by putting it in Halloween Horror Nights, and oh my god, that would bring back the terror. That's what 30 Days of Night did. It brought the terror. Those vampires were amazing. Amazing. They were scary. They had like shark piranha teeth, and they had this screeching noise that I can do actually. Let me see if I can do the noise. And they just tear the living crap out of your neck. And they're like, it's like the best thing in the world. I hope this was interesting for you to kind of watch vampires evolve over the centuries. And if there's any favorites that you missed, feel free to tell me and we can talk about it. I do reply to people. I also have a Twitter handle now. I'm going to try and use Twitter, so you can contact me through there too. It's Shannon is Morbid. That's my real name with my nickname. And hopefully you've enjoyed my walkthrough so far and my content, and hopefully I'll see you next time in the next video. Bye!